Waging war on corruption. It's Alex Jones coming to you live from the front lines of the info war.
Millie Weaver's our guest. She was a model and actress out in Hollywood and had some success with her sister, but soon learned that it was a nightmare. You just in the last minute and a half break, you were talking about some of the cost of your friends and people that died, that went to mental institutions, just at the hands of one individual. Yes. And it wasn't just older men when you were underage that groomed you and that were having sex. It was, you were telling me, also being raped. So tell us about some of that.
Yeah, so basically we were kind of being damage controlled, handled, I guess, by some big name Hollywood managers and producers. And it turns out, I found out later that one of these producers was in association with the mogul that had assaulted me. And apparently he also managed for a while these girls that were twins, that one of the twins was assaulted by that guy when she was about 16. She was actually raped. And those twins ended up, one of them, she jumped mysteriously out of a condo high-rise on cocaine and died, and her sister wound up being in a mental hospital. And basically it's really, they kind of have just disappeared altogether off the map. And so I was wondering, in my mind, that kind of terrified me at the time, is that what's going to happen to me? Or,
well, think about this.
If I didn't join their group, join the occult, that's what the offer was being put forward to me on the table. If I said no, was I going to wind up like those girls? And that's when I tried to go to the authorities, get help, and the gang stalking and all of that stuff was tremendous. I had severe anxiety. It was horrible.
And you were just there a few years. As this all begins to come out, you were downtown this week on Congress and did a report. And a lot of people were oblivious, or they thought Hollywood was only about, feminism or guys being pushy. I mean, you can really see how they're obscuring what's really going on just by focusing on guys that are borderline assaulting women, which I think is terrible. We talked about this weeks ago, saying that's where it's going. And you talk to the trendies, and they just don't seem to have any idea what's going on.
Hollywood is a satanic mafia-run town, an industry. And so why do we have these women only now, after all of these years, coming forward? Well, I think it's partially because of the fact that Harvey Weinstein is coming under fire and he's likely to be prosecuted. Maybe they feel safer. Maybe they feel like there's more of an alternative media that they can rely on in covering and exposing what their statements are. But I feel like their statements have been way underreported in the mainstream media.
I also noticed in your Person on the Street report, the women particularly, just 10 years ago, would want to be on TV. Now they're all looking at their own phones. It's made them so insular or so inward looking. But in a way, that's good. People don't even like reporters or Hollywood anymore. Used to, folks would jump to be on TV. Now they don't. I mean, this is really the collapse of mainstream media. But I notice your frustration as well. They also didn't want to be on TV about something serious. Some of the pop stuff on the internet's made it where it's all just, mindless stuff. And that's the stuff that YouTube pushes, not the serious topics.
Well, the frustration there was that it seemed like hardly anybody had heard about these celebrities coming out about sex abuse. And I'm asking them, did you hear about the Hollywood sex abuse scandals? And they're all like, no, no, no. And then finally, some of them, when I mentioned Harvey Weinstein, they said, oh, I think I saw something about that on social media. Well, but none of them said they saw it on TV or on mainstream media. Your
report was very important. We ought to take this clip talking about it, put it on the front, and put it back out, but with a headline like, Libtards Not Aware of Hollywood Sex Scandal. And then just point, and then it'll get 5 million views like your last video. You'll do a super video, it gets like 50,000 views, and the other one you did. But the last video I did has like 5 million views now, the one before that, where you took on Eminem, so great job. Millie Weaver, I appreciate your courage. Let's talk more about this on the War Room coming up. If there's some time, we can do a whole hour on this. Thanks for your courage.
Thanks, Alex.
You and Gavin, and your sweet son, he's so good.
Yeah,
we'll be back. Stay with us, folks.
Well, what is going to happen to those people that we can't re-educate, that are diehard capitalists? And the reply was that they'd have to be eliminated. And when I pursued this further, they estimated that they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers. And when I say eliminate, I mean kill 25 million people. I want you to imagine sitting in a room with 25 people, most of which have graduate degrees from Columbia and other well-known educational centers, and hear them figuring out the logistics for the elimination of 25 million people. And they were dead serious.
And that was from an interview back in 1992. Mr. Grathwohl died in the last few years, and I was shocked to hear it. I said, let's get Larry back on back in 2013, and 6 months had gone by, and they said, oh, you know, he died tragically. But if you see the documentaries he was in back in the 90s, or the interviews we did back in the 2000s, right through to 2013, you then see the Weathermen and Bill Ayers and the Antifa and the globalists, the Democratic Party, literally pushing the same rhetoric now. And you see them in the 2010 Army documents that are public, declassified, talking about re-education camps in America. They use the term re-education camp. Just type in Army documents, talk about re-education camps. And it says conservatives and libertarians will be sent to the re-education camps, how they'll process our Social Security cards, how they'll put the children in one area, the women in other areas, the troublemaker men will be taken. This isn't Red Dawn and a nightmare vision of Russian occupation. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is America. And you can find this in the Library of Congress. You can find this on Scrib. You can find the articles by Paul Watson that actually have the subsections clipped out. Just type in Infowars.com, Army documents, details, re-education camps for Americans. That is the Soviet term. So Lindsay Grathwohl is the daughter of Larry Grathwohl, who infiltrated the Weather Underground. He was a Green Beret in Vietnam, highly decorated underground organization. Her father wrote the book Bringing Down America in the 70s and re-released it in 2013. He was on the break from his book tour when he passed away on July 18th, 20. Lindsay worked with her dad behind the scenes, mostly researching Obama's ties to domestic terrorists like Bill Ayers. Fast forward to today, she saw Antifa and Black Lives Matter and others in Berkeley violently attacking people. She was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area and was shocked at the violence she saw in the streets and the cops doing nothing. She knew people like Bill Ayers were involved, and she found out she was right. So she joins us now. Your father was just an amazing patriot, infiltrating the highest levels of people with Harvard and Cornell degrees, calmly sitting around, as he said, talking about exterminating 25 million people. And that was in the 70s. They had this plan. Now they got Obama in. They put these networks in place. Now they're calling for a war. Riding shotgun with us in this hour is one of our investigative reporters as well, Millie Weaver, who's been out and been physically attacked by Antifa and been death threatened, and her car broken into with her cameraman and producer, Gavin Wentz, as well. So, Lindsay, we want to just say we appreciate you and your ongoing work with your father's important investigations. Without him, we know we wouldn't have been able to bring down the larger network of the Weather Underground or know their game plan for today. So, again, we stand on your father's shoulders, and we salute you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, Alex.
First snapshot. I mean, you say it yourself. We are witnessing their plan yet again. They've said November 2nd, the main uprising begins on the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. Yeah,
absolutely. And here in the Bay Area, things are getting pretty crazy here. You know, I feel like I live in the hornet's nest, is what I call it. And every time, you know, we step into a city like Berkeley or San Francisco, simply for, you know, if you wear an American flag, you're subject to violence. It's pretty scary.
Well, I've always loved the American flag, but I thought some people used it to launch wars I didn't like, and it could be misused. But since they've tried to ban it, now I wear it. Since they don't like it now I'm flying it.
You know, something peculiar I noticed when I was at Berkeley was all around the town I saw graffiti, but the graffiti had this hammer and sickle mark on it. So I found that bizarre. I had never seen hammer and sickle graffiti anywhere other than Berkeley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that town is very much marked. I mean, the mayor himself, I mean, he's a member of the BAM, which is a domestic terrorist group, by any means necessary. He's actually a member on their Facebook page. So, and these people, I mean, their ultimate goal is to overthrow our government and bring us into a Marxist communist regimes.
And your father was the trailblazer. Talk about your dad. Talk about his history. Talk about, I mean, never want to talk about himself, but talk about a Green Beret, Vietnam, highly decorated, a patriot, why he infiltrated. Because I know he was on the college campus doing the GI Bill. He wasn't even looking for this, but he saw them running around. I mean, talk some about your father.
Yeah, my father, you know, as you said, he was in Vietnam. He enlisted when he was 16 years old, and he into the Army, and he was in Vietnam by the time he was 17, and he spent his 18th birthday in Vietnam. And when he returned home, he became a drill instructor at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And he got married to his first wife and had my two sisters. And at that point, he decided he wanted to use the GI Bill. So they moved back to Cincinnati, which is where my dad was born and raised. And he decided to go to the University of Cincinnati to get his education. And that's where he ran into the SDS. And he was very alarmed by them. And he just so happened to, his first wife happened to, her father worked for the Cincinnati Police Department. So my dad immediately, you know, went to him and, you know, was basically said, you know, these people they're serious. They seem pretty crazy. And that's how it all started. You know, the Cincinnati Police Department started the investigation, had my dad go to meetings and report back to him, but they quickly realized that this group was serious, and that's when the FBI got involved, and that's when my dad became the only informant to be able to infiltrate the Weather Underground. And when they did go underground, he was the only FBI informant to be able to go underground with them. So he worked and lived with people like Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, Mark Rudd, Linda Evans, Jeff Jones. I mean, these are names that, I mean, for me, I've heard about them all my life. So for me, when Obama was running for president and, you know, they had Bill Ayers came to play, it was just, you know, it was absolutely mind-blowing to me, you know, that he was in the public eye and that nobody was questioning anything about it. So, I mean, that's basically my dad, you know, ran messages between the Central Committee, which was people like Bill Ayers. They were the leaders of the Weather Underground. Their mission was to go around the country and to cause as much damage as they could, blow up buildings. And, I mean, Bill Ayers himself said that in a revolution, innocent people have to die. So to them, killing innocent people was just part of the revolution that needed to happen. And they claim that they've never killed anybody, but my father was, you know, actually there when Bill Ayers said that Bernadine Dorn placed a bomb on the window ledge of the Park Police Station in San Francisco, California, which killed Sergeant McDonald. So they claim that you know, that never happened, but my father actually talked about it, wrote about it, and had to testify in front of the Senate. So, and his stories always stayed the same, and I believe that they did.
And let's be clear, we're going to break. Your father was a hero, and so are you, working with him for decades. And he lives on with this important work. We will defeat the communists. We will defeat the globalists that fund them. But you have to understand, Mueller, Comey, all of them have put stay-behind networks in. They even admit this, and they're planning violence in this country. And clearly Las Vegas has connections to it. That's why they're covering it up. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, with Larry Grathwohl's daughter, who survives him and just did a great job helping him get his books and material out. This is inside the terrorist organization. Millie Weaver, just a few weeks ago, was out there with Gavin, her producer and camera guy with InfoWars, and their car got broken into. They got threatened. They went and showed the different professor classes and meetings where they were promoting how they were going to go out and be violent. In fact, those reports are up on Infowars.com. You can tell folks some of the names of the reports, but if you want to know the brainchild, the operating system, the granddaddies of BLM and all this, it's communist cop killers. In fact, the founder of BLM, the lady that they say is the grandmother of it, is in Cuba fleeing justice from just shooting a cop that wasn't even doing anything to her. And the whole point is they want violent revolution, and they believe the time is now. And suddenly there's red brigades all over Austin marching, and there's people all over the country doing it. And they're calling for violence and saying the 100th anniversary is here. Then you look at Obama, who sat at the feet of Bill Ayers, who he lived with, and you understand that this now has state backing and how close we were if Hillary would have gotten in. We have Larry Grathwohl, the only man who ever infiltrated the Weather Underground successfully and helped send some of them to prison. We have his heroic daughter who helped him write his book and travel the country before he died 4 years ago.
You know, it was interesting because while I was in Berkeley, this man came up to me on the street and he said, hey, do you want to see the real commies, the commie leaders, the leaders of BAM, Antifa, and the communist movements? And I said, okay, sure, why not? But I was a little bit suspicious because I didn't want to walk into an ambush or a trap. But we went there hesitantly, and of course, that's when we saw the RevCom bookstore. And inside, I was expecting much of young Antifa-looking punks to be the leaders, putting it all together and plotting and scheming. No, believe it or not, it was a bunch of old white people. And I was just completely shocked to see these gray-haired people looking like professors and city leaders and planners.
Tell folks the name of the report so they can pull it up and show TV viewers and radio listeners, because you got footage of all this. This is powerful.
I think it was like exposed Berkeley communist leaders. I think that I don't remember the
We got to
name
republish
exactly.
that with inside a Berkeley communist meeting never before seen.
And you know what they were doing? They had a video on screen when we walked up there of Milo Yiannopoulos, who went out and spoke earlier that day, and it was the footage from the disruptor that went out there and shut him down. And I spoke to Milo's people, and they said, wow, that is the footage from the disruptor, the loud-mouthed disruptor that went out there and made it so that Milo had to leave. So essentially they were watching the footage of their own agent that they sent out there to shut down Milo, and they were actually applauding and clapping.
Look at these communists. They have such dead eyes. It's exposed. Berkeley Antifa leaders caught wargaming against Milo.
That's right.
That's a strong headline, but I think we should say, you know, inside a communist training meeting at Berkeley, because that's what that is.
Exactly. And look at these people here for the viewers. They're
always weird, creepy old people, man.
And the guy said that these were all like Russian communist infiltrators, and that, you know, it wouldn't.
And let's be clear, it's not Russians that are doing it. Our government funded the Bolsheviks in 1917. It's the same globalist leftist disease worldwide, and so it's blowback from there.
Exactly.
Russia has kicked all this out. Let's go back to Lindsay Grathwohl. Lindsay, what is it like to just see the whole Weatherman experiment was like a beta test? This is, what, hundreds of times bigger than what it was in the 70s? Or what would you say the magnitude of this is living in San Francisco?
It's huge. It's scary. I have to say something. After watching that clip, I need to tell you guys the story. That video that you just showed in front of Revolution Books, I was there that day. I'm not in that video, but I was there standing in front of the store with some friends, and we were holding an American flag in front of the store later. This was after, I think, this video. And Revolution Books actually just this last weekend had a fundraiser. And I wish that I could send it to you, the flyer that they have posted, but it goes on and on about the Nazis, which I was, I guess, one of those Nazis that was standing out in front of their store, holding the flag, chanting USA, and they wanted to raise money. I mean, the flyer basically says they're raising money to organize against us. You know,
and let's be clear,
Nazis.
They're watching a video of Milo speaking on the internet from the same day about how they tried with their minions they sent out to violently stop him. I mean, this is literally communists at their command base directing their minions, and just look at the sorry sacks of garbage.
And what the school did was the school made it so that any type of amplification.
And they also had trendy type thugs trying to stop you.
Well, no, this guy actually was the one who tipped us off right here. He said he had sat in on a meeting and he knew their plans, and he was essentially giving us a tip.
Well, he's a cool guy. I just saw some other communists going by.
But he did say they know you, they've seen you, they're after you now. And lo and behold, our car gets broken into. So I found that interesting.
How soon after? Because
I think it was like the next day.
Yeah, go to her Twitter. Where is that posted? All the windows knocked out, the stuff stolen.
Yeah, that was the next day that happened. And what was interesting is Berkeley, the campus, made it so that you couldn't use an amplificatory device, so no speakers.
Yeah.
And so they knew that, and Milo went out there to try and just talk with his voice.
There it is. InfoWars reporter, car vandalized, equipment stolen at Berkeley protest, Infowars.com, newswars.com. Sorry, Millie, go ahead.
So they sent their agent out there to yell over him because they knew that the Berkeley staff made it so you couldn't use an amplificatory device to drown out the provocateur. Nobody could even hear Milo, so Milo left.
And the left openly says ban free speech on Berkeley, and they've done it of Christians, of conservatives. And then if you try to have a prayer rally, we're going to come back and talk about this that you were a witness to, in San Francisco, they come out and viciously attack you and the police, and the mayor defends it, and Pelosi defends it, but then they had to back off a week later and say, okay, it's bad. So I want to ask our guests, what do you think that's about?
Well, you know, our rallies, I just want to say that we were supposed to have, that we had to cancel, the Chrissy Field, and then there was the Say No to Marxism in Berkeley. We had created what we had called Liberty Weekend. And those rallies, to be honest, I mean, we had a couple hundred people that were going to show up. It wasn't until Charlottesville that people really started paying attention. And like literally the day after Charlottesville, there were people, you know, calling us out, calling us Nazis, and that's when Pelosi got on TV and Mayor Lee and all of them and just drilled into everybody that we were white supremacist Nazis without even trying to reach out to us, without even really looking to see what we were about. They wanted to shut us. Well, my own personal opinion isn't that they wanted to shut us down, is that they wanted us to go in there, and I really feel like we were being set up for another Charlottesville. Just from the security that they were planning to give us and all the intel that we were getting, it was dangerous, and so we made the decision to cancel it. And I don't think they were planning on that because it backfired on them, because Antifa showed up in full force, as we saw in Berkeley. I was there. I went to Berkeley the following day.
And they were going to attack people, even if it was the cops and regular citizens. They're so hateful. And so they didn't have some patsies for there to be violence two-sided. It was just a full display of how they started the whole Charlottesville thing as well. And then it turns out their leaders, sheep dipped for 1 year, were also running the white supremacist group.
Yeah. And I, you know, it's crazy. I mean, we, in Berkeley that day, Berkeley had said, you know, no, they gave us a list, no helmets. No
Hold on,
sticks,
stay right there. We got to go to break. Stay right there. Larry Grathwohl's wonderful daughter is our guest. Stay with us. Huge mega bankers, tax-exempt foundations, the richest fortunes on earth, the Ted Turners, the Bill Gateses. They are all there with people like Soros quarterbacking and generaling their operation. $18 billion he just gave this year to crush America and crush Russian resistance to communism, socialism, the whole atheist ideology, the sexualization of children. You want to know Russia's crime? Their national TV shows now, for at least 6-7 years, sound like this broadcast and cover. And by the way, do play clips of my show. I'm told every day on private and Russian television. I never asked that. I've never been to Russia. I don't speak 5 words of Russian. The point is that Russia was Christian and was anti-communist before they got taken over in 1917. And the very same grandchildren of the same mega bankers on record that financed that Bolshevik revolution are launching one now. And they mean business. Now, Larry Grathwohl, you ride the shotgun. You've been attacked many times.
Yeah.
You were in Charlottesville. I forget. I mean, that's why Millie Weaver's here.
The Antifa should be taken serious. They have military-like training. I don't know who exactly is giving them the training, but they were doing warlike maneuvering and essentially pulling the right people, the alt-right people out.
They have phalanxes. They're kettling people.
Exactly.
They're using police tactics.
They have training, and somebody's training them. That's all I've seen. And you know what's interesting? My mom's stepmother, her family was actually from Russia, and they had fled the Bolshevik Revolution. They had everything taken. Which
was a New York, London liberal revolution. A bunch of people meeting, just like they're at that bookshop, saying, we're taking over. They mean business.
They were,
and you got some bozo the clown, old crazy mental patient running your life in a death camp.
That's right. They took their estate, their wealth, everything. They ran them out. They were lucky to get away with their lives. I would take the threat of Antifa, and even on November 4th, pretty serious in that if you have grandma at home in an area that you think that Antifa could, you know, protest, or keep your family out of those areas, and just be prepared to defend yourselves if you get attacked.
Exactly, because let's be clear, they call it anti-fascist. They've got communist tattoos. They're communists. But notice, the last 30 years, we're told communists don't exist, okay, when it actually came from here. So let me go back to Lindsay Grathwohl. I want to get more into where you think Antifa's going, how we stop them, but just stories about your dad, because there's a couple documentaries he's in. I interviewed him probably 15 times or so. You know, I read his book. Tell us some stories about your dad, because the same way I was going to local college at 18 years old, I went in, I'd read a bunch of history books. I wasn't a Green Beret like your dad that fought communists. And I was hearing America's evil, the founding fathers are bad, guns are bad, all whites are bad. These were white professors. And I knew it was classic communism. And so I said, I better fight this. That's what it's the same path as your dad. So I think we were on many levels the same paths. Him just earlier back in the 70s, you know, right around the time I was born. So tell us some stories about Larry Grathwohl, because, you know, these are the type of patriots that literally we would have lost by now if it wasn't for their instinct. He wasn't directed by government. He did it on his own, just like I did.
Yeah, he did. He always said he felt that he did it because it was the right thing to do. And I definitely know where he's coming from, because I feel the same way with what I'm doing. I feel like I can't, there's no way I can just stand back and watch, you know, them take over my country. Can't do it. There's a couple of stories. I mean, one thing, my dad, he, you know, for a lot of years, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, the Weather Underground, they were really quiet throughout the 80s and even part of the 90s. And it wasn't until Obama ran for office that, you know, they really came out and people started talking about
Obama lived with in college. Just wanted to add that.
Right. My dad did a lot of extensive research, as you know, because you spoke to my dad many times. And, you know, every time we would research something, we would find something else. There was always something. They weren't just neighbors. He wasn't just a man in the neighborhood, like he wanted to say. So my dad, you know, he felt, you know, he needed to get out and he needed to speak up, because here's this man running for president who is an outright communist, a Marxist communist. And so my dad got out and really tried to speak with people. And we ended up going to St. Mary's College. Bill Ayers spoke at St. Mary's College. I want to say it was in 2010, maybe.
And your dad confronted him.
Yeah, well, my dad tried to. The thing about that is that when my dad got to the front of the line, Bill Ayers abruptly ended the Q&A session and ran out the back door. We followed him, my dad, myself, and a few other people, we followed them, and he got in a car and he drove away. It wasn't long after that I found out that Bill Ayers' son, Malik Dorn, he goes by Malik Dorn instead of Malik Ayers, he's a teacher in a middle school here in the same district that I live in, so in the Bay Area. So Bill Ayers spends quite a bit of time here in the Bay Area. I also, when I started doing research on Antifa and Refuse Fascism and BAM and all these domestic terrorist groups of today, I found that Bill Ayers was actually here during one of the riots that happened in Berkeley. I think it was in April. He was actually here in the Bay Area. He was helping them make signs. So he's very active and very involved in this, which I wasn't surprised.
Of course. So Obama was their next foundation, Ford Foundation, Carnegie Endowment. It all came out in the Frank Church Committee hearings in the 70s that good liberals exposed the communist takeover plan with the foundations. It wasn't just conservatives. This is so monstrous. When the average person is faced with this, they just can't believe it. But what was it like for your dad to then see, once Obama came out, to see the Weather Underground terrorists come out from under their rocks after 2 decades of hibernation?
Just absolutely mind-blowing. It's like, and I can even understand even more because of what I'm witnessing today, how bad it is now, even as opposed to where it was, before my dad passed away. But it's just mind-blowing that, and what was even more mind-blowing is that, as much as people would get out and talk, like, you and my dad and so many people, Trevor Loudon, getting out there and trying to show the actual facts and the proof that this man is not what he claims to be, and nobody would listen. It was very just...
But what is it like now to see people really are starting to wake up now? Do you agree?
Oh, I love it. It motivates me. It motivates me a lot to get out there and do more because, it's like finally, people are waking up and seeing it. And I feel like, because it's so obvious now. People that that used to be liberal are coming out to me and saying, wow, like especially after our rallies and they got canceled here in the Bay Area, I have people coming to me and apologizing to me for having, for us having to cancel it and for people, them calling.
Exactly. A lot of liberals are deciding they're still liberal and they're not joining this truly fascist communist organization. We build up basketball players, football players, golf players, all that is, but guys that are trailblazers like your dad, really are the type of people that if we didn't have him, because I can look at him, he's like patient zero, but in a good way, that's one of the first dominoes to discover this whole thing. If it wasn't for him, we would be way behind right now, literally, or a Ron Paul or a Matt Drudge or somebody like...
During the Red Scare in the 1910s, when the Bolsheviks first started overthrowing the Russian government or monarchy then, the United States government started actually going and finding communists and deporting them, even if they were U.S. citizens. And that's how serious they took the threat of communism. Now we're to the point where in California, it's legal for government employees to be outwardly communist.
Exactly. Let's come back with the final segment with our guest, Ann with Millie, a victim of Antifa all over the place, from Charlottesville to there in California at Berkeley, and the daughter of Larry Grathwohl. Please stay with us. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm here live. Then, right after the transmission ends, it's Owen Schroyer and The War Room with Roger Stone and many other co-hosts that come in and join The War Room. Your calls, special guests, and more. Then, of course, David Knight is on 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. right before we go live every day, all times central, from right here in the Austin, Texas system. Broadcasting and transmitting on radio and TV and the internet worldwide. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's not inexpensive to run this operation. We're hiring more editors, more videographers, more fact checkers, more researchers. We've got legal fees, obviously. We've got licensing fees. It takes a lot to fund this, even though we're in Texas. We couldn't do this in L.A. or New York because of the cost. We would be a third the size. But so we're doing it on the cheaps here in Texas. But I do like to take care of my crew. Like to be able to expand in the face of Soros, allied groups openly trying to shut us down. So please go to InfoWarsStore.com today and look at the T-shirts. Meet like-minded people, spread the word. Molon Labe shirts, Trump is my president shirts. There's hundreds of great shirts. Mass murderers agree, gun control works. Hoodies, long sleeves, great body armor, made in America, American flags, bumper stickers at cost. Every order gets citizen rule books. We've got custom lower thirds that are all legal. We've got a bunch of CNN's fake news. That's a great way to meet like-minded people. Thousands of great products, very, very affordable. Anthroplex, super high quality, known herbs for libido, stamina. I love it. It's organic. It's basically the dried form, the pill form of Super Male Vitality. We've never done it 50% off. And I'm doing this because I've noticed if I take these things almost down to cost, we sell so much more, I'm then able to give you a better price and bring in the money. But we got to sell a lot of it to do this. So there you go. Anthroplex, 50% off. That's the new special for the next week. Brain Force Plus, the amazing nootropic. It's 50% off right now. That's about to end. A whole bunch of known great compounds. Just amazing. Research Brain Force. Leading competitors are $70 for similar formulas that aren't as good. It's a good deal at $39. It's $19.96 right now.
Make sure you get the knockout as well, because I have only heard everybody ranting and basically raving about how wonderful the knockout is and how it gives them the most vivid dreams they've ever had. And the knockout and the Brain Force really kind of go together. They pair together in a really nice way. That you don't become dependent on any of them. It just gives you like a natural, clean feeling sleep. You wake up refreshed, and then if you want to take that Brain Force to knock out a bunch of your work, it just really gets your mind.
And here's an example. I forget why am I not taking it when my sleep is so much better. It's amazing. And all it is $19.95. the same amount of melatonin is in it that's in other leading brands that cost $19.95. But then we put in the L-tryptophan, all organic. We put in the valerian root and other things, and so it all works in synergy together. Great point about the knockout.
If you want to have IMAX level movie theatrical dreams, take the knockout.
What, is that what happened for you?
Yeah, and
we didn't talk about this beforehand.
A bunch of other people in the studio, a bunch of the crew I've talked to that take the knockout.
Well, that's the valerian.
I have the most insane, vivid dreams I've ever had in my life.
Well, it's all about wild sourcing and organics, so we get different batches. Like the last batch was good, but not super strong. I'd take 2. The new batch came in, and I mean, it's funny you said that. I'm taking 1 pill. Even when I'm sleepy, it's just so much better. I was about to say, it is like...
you have really good, vivid dreams.
But
like
again, we're not a big industrial deal. This is all wild-crafted or organic source, so each batch is different. This particular batch is really lives up to the name Knockout, InfoWarsLife.com, and it really makes the globalists mad when you support us, so please take action and support us today. And just commit to sign up for auto ship. It's at $10 or 10% off on your order.
And the Knockout is 33% off as well, so that's also on sale.
That's right. And again, we don't raise the price and lower the price. We really already have it discounted, usually 10%. Everything's always discounted 10% because everybody likes sales. But I'm just also now buying more and more from the big organic manufacturers that we get it from. And so we're just leveraging up and up and up and up and up. And as everybody knows, they had BuzzFeed test 7 of the products in California that has the highest standards in the world. The FDA has 1,000 times a higher standard for lead. Or there could be 1,000% more till they say there's a problem. California says that there has to be less lead in your products than there is in the air. And it passed this thing, but I said, listen.
Then there isn't kale even.
But I said, folks, the liberals never give up. Just know that. Okay. I mean, you think that makes them mad? Absolutely. And so they've almost bankrupted California. It's truly amazing to watch California commit suicide like this, and it's very, very sad. Speaking of the devil, you're out there in California. Larry Grathwohl's daughter joins us. Lindsay Grathwohl. I've been doing a lot of the talking here. In the time we have left, both you ladies, what are other points people should know about the clear and present danger of communism? Because Millie, during the break, we'll do one more segment after this if you have time, before John Rappaport comes on. You were talking about, the communist bombings of the 1910s, the 1920s. Alex, you ever talk about that? And I said, yes, they called them anarchist bombings, but they were communists trying to overthrow the U.S. That's why they deported a bunch of them. And the same thing today. The communists call themselves anarchists, so they don't give their movement any blame while they destabilize the society. You want to speak to that, Lindsay?
Yeah, Bill Ayer's always called himself an anarchist. I think he even probably said that when he was on your show, so it doesn't surprise me.
He goes, I'm not a communist, I'm an anarchist, Alex. I've never wanted violence. What?
It's like, it makes you wonder, do these people have cognitive dissonance, or are
they have total disrespect for you and are going to sit there and say, no one's ever called for violence against congressmen, just top Democrats.
They're just gaslighting everyone.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were, when we went to Berkeley for the No to Marxism rally that was canceled, they actually showed up, and I don't know if it was Antifa or if it was BAM, what group it was, but there was a big truck that actually showed up that actually they started handing weapons and shields to the people on the streets. So, earlier I wanted to say, because we were talking earlier about the train, you were saying that they're trained. They are definitely well-trained, a lot of them. I saw it in Berkeley. And when I was up in Portland for a rally, there were actually signs in Portland for Antifa training at union buildings. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but they do train in union buildings up in Portland.
Wow. Again, what would your father think? Again, the only man to ever infiltrate the Weather Underground and survive and expose their plan to overthrow the U.S. government, bring in Latin American communist forces just like Red Dawn and communist Chinese, and then put 50 million Americans in forced labor camps and kill 25 million of us. And that was back with 70s numbers. So it'd be about 100 million they want to put in camps and 50 mil they'd kill. They've got to be upset they haven't gotten their plan yet to kill 50 mil. But I've been around communists. They tell you, we're going to kill people and you better get in line. Back when I was exposing Bush for bad stuff he was doing, communists would want to come on air. They'd call themselves liberals. And later at dinner, they'd say, listen, you're a libertarian. We're going to let you be part of it. We're going to kill everybody. We want to kill people. And they'd really get off on talking about killing people.
Sickening. It's sickening. I know, I mean, my dad, growing up, I mean, I heard these stories. My dad was pretty certain that things like this would eventually happen, and people called him crazy for it. Now, not so much. People are seeing what's happening right now, and you're seeing the violence and everything that's happening in the street. And November 4th, I take that very seriously, especially with the violence that I've seen firsthand with myself and my friends. I have no doubt that they are in it to win it, that they are in this to overthrow our government and to take over. And this has been going on for decades. It's not something new. A lot of people, are just waking up to it, so it's new to them, but it's not new. We know that.
And let's be clear, they don't want a republic where we elect people and where we have a constitutional democracy. They want state-run politburos and central committees just like Communist China, because I've studied them. The modern groups, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies, their main model is China. They see China, and also North Korea, strangely enough, as the model.
You know, a lot of people are talking about how the strategic and best move might be to not go out and try to face these communists in the street and just let them go out and be terrorists so that we can then pressure our government officials to formally classify them as terrorist organizations.
Well, that's happening, but here's the problem. They're smart, like they'd bomb stuff in the 20s and call themselves anarchists or blame it on conservatives. They clearly did Mandalay. He was a leftist operative with ISIS people. That we've got the evidence. It's all come out now. They will do attacks and blame it on America. The problem is they've got to be stopped.
Yes, absolutely. We believe that that's what they were trying to do with our rallies in the Bay Area, is that they wanted the violence, similar to Charlottesville, and then it was going to turn on us. It was going to be, we caused it, our people did all this, and the violence is on us, not them.
That's right. Stay right there. Lindsay Grathwohl, her father, a true hero, exposing the murderous communist plan.